ago, when I started this little podcast called, what was it at the time? It wasn't even the Alex Garrett Podcast Network. It was literally just covering the bases with Alex Garrett, I believe. And I started this thing in January, early February 2014. It was actually the week of Super Bowl week that we really launched. And we did that whole Super Bowl spectacular. I still have that podcast up here. And now, 9 years later, I've got a story to tell you. See, what happened was, Spreaker opened the door for this podcast very early on. What do I mean by it? Of course I'm on the train talking about this, but this is breaking news. What do I mean by that? Spreaker opened the door by, when I first submitted to iHeartRadio through Spreaker, they accepted. Then Apple Podcasts, then Spotify. It was like a domino effect. But I don't think that would have been possible if Spreaker didn't do that. In fact, 9 years ago, they gave me a Broadcast Pro account right away, and I was kind of shocked because I was just starting. I didn't know how this thing would go or how it would lead, but I wanted to give people sides of stories that you weren't hearing, because our millennial generation is, as I always like to say, warming up in the bullpen. But to me, what's the opportunities given to me through Spreaker has now been afforded to others. You know why? Do you know why? Because Spreaker is opening the door, that's right, opening the door to others who want to have a voice in the podcast sphere. Here's what CEO Francesco Bashiri said, the Spreaker's CEO and co-founder. As more and more content platforms require subscription fees, I firmly believe podcasting should be accessible to all creators. That's why we've decided to offer professional podcast features such as monetization and unlimited storage at no cost, empowering podcasters of all sizes to reach their full potential. Free podcasting is something to come by. When Anchor has this, when all these other podcast platforms have stipulations, Spreaker say no. We want that opportunity created. So may I remind you tonight that a story that was created 9 years ago with this podcast that keeps growing, has more legs than I do, if I'm honest with you, is now giving others the chance to grow on Spreaker. And I have to share this link in the podcast description of this page. Because it wasn't that I was afraid to jump on, it was that I knew it would be a little rough patch. You know, to be honest, I paid $100 a month to be on Blog Talk Radio, and that was an adventure and experience, a very special one, calling different games for Queens College. But then, when Spreaker came along and offered a free platform, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was just a youngster at this whole podcast thing. Now, we're expanding the network. We're having people come on almost every day as a guest. We're becoming a trustworthy source. And you know why? Because Spreaker allowed that to happen. And I'm so excited that it's allowing so many others to join in on the fun of podcasting. You get to open up the mic and share your thoughts. You have a tweet, you want to turn it into something, you turn that tweet into a podcast. You can. You want to have a few different features, you can. I've also downsized my podcast to make room for more growth. And I think all of this, and also, by the way, I've doubled the revenue. So if you have a couple ads, I'm sorry, but they do offer a maximum of 2 ads per pre-roll and post-roll, and I've taken advantage of that because why not? If Spreaker's saying, hey, we want creators out here every day, no matter the size of the podcast, then we all who want to have a voice in this realm known as media, this side of media, take advantage of everything Spreaker is offering you. I would like to say I am. And I like to say I'm continuing to grow. And because of this, you can hear this podcast on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, Radio Public. If I'm yelling, it's because I'm on the train, but I'm also too excited to talk. I'm too excited to talk about this. Because I had a totally different idea of what I was going to talk about today. Until Spreaker mentioned me in their story of 16,000 followers. Not only that did they mention it, but they gave my story a heart. And they've tracked with my stories a while now. They keep looking at it. And this one they shared. And the fact that they're offering opportunity to others that they afforded me 9 years ago for free is just noteworthy. And so yes, may I remind you, you too have a story to tell, and Spreaker wants you to tell it every day and have people on to tell their stories on your platform as well. Whatever niche you want and you want to break into, Spreaker is the platform. I am proud to call Spreaker my flagship. Every day I say, well, you can listen on Spreaker.com. They are my flagship, and I'm proud to call them that. Because they've given me the opportunity to expand my connections beyond just, however else. And pitches are coming thanks to Decision. But that's all thanks to Spreaker. That's the root. That's the root. And so if you want to really get your feet wet, if you really want to get in there, in the trenches of the media world, of the podcast world, I totally suggest you jump onto Spreaker.com. Totally suggest it. And thank you, Spreaker, for making this last 9 years feel sort of looked at, acknowledged. And it's okay to fly under the radar, okay? It's okay to do that. But that acknowledgement every once in a while is special, and I just want to give it back to Spreaker and say thanks for creating this opportunity for me 9 years ago, and now affording everybody else that wants to tell their story an opportunity. This is a game-changing app and a game-changing podcast platform. So jump on it while you can. Jump on it while the iron's hot. Strike while the iron's hot. And you too. If you feel voiceless, you have a voice in it. And Spreaker is making damn sure of it. So that's my 5-minute fix. Another little extended one, but nonetheless, my 5-minute fix. Thank you, Spreaker, for allowing me to tell my story every day and have other people tell their stories on this platform every day. And we'll talk to you soon.